Inside Out 2 versus Despicable Me 4. Now, before you go into the comments going crazy, honestly, yes, this is a comparison, like basically choosing a very fancy and high-class steak to a McDonald's cheeseburger. And yes, that is correct. But Despicable Me 4 is severely disappointing to people more than just like, oh, it's your average Despicable Me movie. And this is more of a video of how Illumination needs to change, not only with their sequels, but just their movies in general. Now, yes, you could say their formula already is working perfectly. They have the generic movie plots, they have the basic marketing that goes crazy, and the movie makes close to $1 billion every time. Mostly. But you can have that, but also just making a genuine good movie. And a big example of that for today's video is Inside Out 2. Now, don't lie to yourself. Nobody expected Inside Out 2 to become the highest grossing animated movie of all time. Nobody saw that coming. They thought the movie was gonna do okay, possibly good, but after Pixar's recent track record, they were like, okay, this might just do fine based off of name recognition. But no, that wasn't just the case. The movie was actually good. Like, really good. And I think that word of mouth, not only with its campaign and everything, made the movie skyrocket in popularity to now being, yeah, the highest grossing animated movie of all time. And we're discrediting The Lion King, that doesn't count. But with Illumination, I'm a little worried for upcoming films. We have films like the Super Mario Bros. Movie 2, which is under Nintendo, which gives a slight better case for that movie. The first movie was good, but that was mostly because Nintendo had a sniper aimed at Illumination if they added a single fart joke in the movie. And yeah, that movie was pretty basic, but you know, it's a Mario movie, so that gets a pass. And regarding, its future, it could go either way. It could be good, or it could just be, the same thing for the first movie. And then you have Minions 3. Now, this is the movie that, yeah, I expected as soon as Despicable Me 4 ended, with, the Mega Minions being not as used as much, and it makes sense. And honestly, for that movie, I'm a little worried that it's gonna have the same treatment as Despicable Me 4. Most generic plot ever, nothing really pushing the franchise forward at all, just there to make a lot of money. Which it will, it most likely really will. But there are so many avenues that this franchise could take that could actually make it, actually good. First off, aging the characters. Actually giving growth and development to these characters would really do the movie justice. It wouldn't really change anything. Yes, with Inside Out 2, Riley grew a little bit, nothing really drastic, but with that, things change and makes it, more interesting. Keeping the girls the same age in Despicable Me is really gonna hurt the films in the future. There's gonna be no change about them at all. In fact, in this film, there was not much for them to do at all. They were just trying to fill up time for the runtime. Making them age, you could maybe have them going down a path line helping Gru with missions for the AVL. There are things you could do with that to make it actually more interesting. But if you're giving them the Simpsons treatment, as Illumination called it, you're setting yourself up for really, really bad things to come with the franchise. Just nothing being interesting anymore. And with Inside Out, honestly, that trend will most likely continue with Inside Out 3, and honestly, Inside Out is not stopping at 3. After it becoming the highest grossing animated movie, oh my god, we're getting like Inside Out 6, 7, it's gonna go insane. But honestly, Inside Out 3 makes sense, growing the character maybe to be up maybe in her 20s, that would be really cool to see. But there was lots of growth and character development in the movie itself, which Despicable Me 4 just didn't have at all. And even the center plot of Gru and Gru Jr. barely had any growth and development. Honestly, I still see Gru Jr. as just basically a Jack clone. There's nothing really interesting about him at all. Yes, you could say, but he's just a baby. What's so interesting about him? Then again, Jack exists, and he has so much more personality than that. And Gru doesn't really change that much at all. none of the characters really grow after this movie. It's just, another wacky adventure with the minions, and that's about it. And also with these two movies, an interesting antagonist. And I'm not saying villain, I'm saying antagonist. Because with Inside Out 2, anxiety isn't really a villain, it's just she's pushed in the wrong direction, and honestly, yeah, really falls into the antagonist character, not really just a villain. But Despicable Me 4's case, yeah, Maxine Lamal is a villain. But the most boring villain ever. Oh my god. There is nothing interesting about Maxine Lamal at all, and everyone thought that Brat was a bad villain. Brat may seem like, not that great compared to Vector and El Macho, which, is fair, but Maxine makes Brat look like an amazing villain, because the only thing Maxine has going for him is the cockroach thing, which isn't even really that interesting at all. Yeah, sure, it wasn't in the trailer, so that was a surprise, but there was nothing memorable at all about him. And Despicable Me 4, as it ages through the years, no one's gonna be thinking about Maxine Lamal. All three villains from the previous movies all still hold up. All people come back to, and it's like, oh, that was a good villain. Nothing is gonna come back for this villain. There was nothing interesting about him. His motives were just, eh. And he didn't really pose that great of a threat to the story, so he even basically falls lower than the Chameleon from Kung Fu Panda 4, and we all thought that the Chameleon was one of the worst villains, but that's just how it played out. And the thing is, people can argue, Illumination just isn't that kind of company. Yes, Illumination will never be that company like Pixar, but you can give it credit that they can do a better job with their films. Illumination has proven this, actually, in the past. Well, with their first film, Despicable Me, that was actually a good movie, an actual good story. And actually, more recently, Sing 2, a pretty underrated movie no one really talks about, is actually really surprisingly good. I never really checked this movie out for a while. I got bored and one day just checked it out on Netflix, and I was just sitting there at the end. What the hell? That was actually really good. The first Sing wasn't anything to, go crazy about, but this sequel actually was really surprisingly good. There was a good story in it, there was a lot of good character development in it, and it was like, wow, this was like an actually good animated film from Illumination. And last year, well, it wasn't anything spectacular, but I can say it's better than, the slop Illumination usually pushes out. But Migration may have the most simple story ever, and honestly, that's just the best of things, but was actually a pretty good movie. Nothing crazy, but actually had good characters, good growth, and actually good character development. Nothing crazy, but it was a good film. But the step up right after that, going to Despicable Me 4, just wasn't the right way to go. And films that most likely are happening, supposedly still being in development, is The Secret Life of Pets 3, which is also going to be a film that I have no interest at all. I'll say the first film was alright, the second film was boring. If you thought Despicable Me 4 was a drag to sit through in the middle of its movie, Secret Life of Pets 2 is a drag. And it's the first movie I actually got droopy-eyed while watching in a very long time. But with that said, I will say Pixar and Illumination will never be on the same level. No, but Illumination as an animation studio could push forward past the stereotype of being the fast food of the animation industry. First of all, their animation is stunning. Mostly that's the reason why Nintendo went to Illumination, because of how vibrant their animation is, it's so bright, fits the Mario world, and also because of their great marketing. But if you combine the two, and actually put a good story together, and great characters and great development, Illumination could be regarded as a good studio. And Inside Out 2, happening right before this, really just goes to show what, an amazing animated movie could be like, and really what a mediocre sequel could turn out. Two sequels to very popular franchises, both ending up just on the mediocre end. But I could be wrong. Inside Out 3 could be just the most mid movie we ever get. But at the current times right now, these are two examples of sequels that could, one, give characters more development, and two, could really show the downside of lazy writing and just, really only putting this movie out there just for the sake of putting it out there. And maybe that film could have existed because the plot we have for Despicable Me 4 wasn't actually the original plot. Maxley Lamal was still supposed to be in the film, but he was going to recruit the likes of Brat, Vector, and El Macho. And that might have been actually a good film, not just for the sake of nostalgia, but just pushing Gru to ends he's never been pushed to. And having to make sure his family is safe, that double life story could have been done well, but it was really only there for just gags, and it was just a gag reel of events. But having all the villains come together to push Gru to lengths that's never been pushed for in the franchise would have made it a worthy movie. But I guess something happened. I'm not sure why they didn't. Maybe Maxley Lamal wouldn't stand out as a villain. I mean, he already doesn't because of this movie. But honestly, that might have pushed Despicable Me 4 in a better direction. We have no idea. But these are two very different examples. Like most people are in the comments are gonna say, bro, this is like comparing a steak to a cheeseburger. Yes, but this is a great example of how illumination needs to change, because in the upcoming years, illumination just may be regarded as not the worst, but probably the bottom tier of animation studios, when it's possible for them to push in a better direction. But what do you think? Do you think illumination needs to change, or you feel they're in a already good spot? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace.